Look, there's only one reasonable way to settle this. Rock, paper, scissors. Poor, predictable Bart always takes rock.
Good old rock. Nothing beats that.
Rock, paper.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another week of Muskies on Tap. I have one of your three hosts here, Gus Manti. We got episode number 156, and this is a special one. We got none other than Luke Ronnestrand on out of Minnesota, Vermilion. We chat about, of course, Vermilion, chat about Mille Lacs and all sorts of stuff. Great stories, phenomenal stories. Definitely hope you guys enjoy this one because we had an absolute blast talking to Luke. But before we get any further, let's introduce the other gents on this call tonight. We got none other than Brian. Brian, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, doing good. Same old on my neck of the woods. A lot of golf. I've golfed 5 days in a row this past
Five?
weekend.
Thought it was like
Yeah,
two or three. You did
I was making
five?
time, man, making time. Started to become a priority again. Played really well the first 3 days, and then I kind of started to fall off a cliff there the last two. Maybe just sort of a fatigue thing. Not in midsummer golf shape yet, but yeah, that's been a majority of my time. You weren't too far from me doing a little fishing yourself this past weekend.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we'll get into that here in a bit. Before then, Max, how you doing tonight, champ?
Champ, that's crazy.
You just champed him?
That's crazy. I'm
Yeah.
doing good. I'm doing good. Minnesota opener this weekend. The box is built. We're locked and loaded and ready to go. So I'm excited to get back out there and have a shot at these Leech Lakers.
What did you get? Not to like, I don't know if I get a little too far in advance here, but we're shooting this intro after we just had Luke on. Was there a little inspiration on maybe like something you're
Oh
thinking
yeah.
about throwing at these leechers? I know one in my head that I think you should say, but I'm curious what you got out of it.
Like, are you saying bait specific wise? I think a big
Yeah,
takeaway. Okay, yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I'm happy that he's enthusiastic about the prospects for this weekend all across the state.
good.
That's good to hear. But seemed like there's a little bit of emphasis on the topwater game. Did get that new big old the hog pog from Nimmer Swimmer that I might chuck around a little
There you
bit.
go.
Um,
Hog pog.
but yeah, obviously going to be throwing kind of just back to the Minnesota stuff, bucktails, rubber, some glides, twitch baits, just kind of the whole kitchen sink, I think, and seeing what these fish want. But I really don't want to get into too much about what I got going on. We got a big interview. Gus, you were out fishing on the water this last weekend. If you want to just kind of give us the rundown on that quick, and then we could dial up this conversation with Luke.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for a little bit of an update, I guess, on the Northwoods is that we're progressing fast, as I maybe kind of leaned on with this super hot weather that we're getting right now. The fish are kind of I would say scattered for the most part until they're not. And I kind of mean that by you'll maybe raise a fish here or there, but then there's also just some spots on most of these lakes that I'm hitting where you're just finding a pile of fish to go on. Whether they want to eat or not, that's, up to the weather and moon and everything. Unfortunately, we do have just this, rough weather. Thankfully, we get some rain the day this pod comes out. Um, but they just seem to go on random things every day. Like just the other day, it was like gliders only, especially on that particular lake out there in league with dad, and just crazy action on gliders. There's two other league boats out there, talked to them each, and one had the same action. They also were throwing a ton of gliders, and that was raising all the fish. And then the other boat didn't have like any action, and they were out deeper and not throwing gliders. So, you know, if you're not seeing a whole lot of action right away, I guess just my word of advice would just be completely switch your depth and like style of fishing. Like not just change a bait where you're at, like completely switch it up until you find something, then you're bound to find a whole hodgepodge of fish. But we're close to seeing some mayfly hatches go, so that's gonna start soon. We're gonna have an open water bite soon, I bet. The true post spawn of these females, and a lot of males will push out there. We're hovering right around 68 to 72 degree water temps. Um, so yeah, I think it's gonna be in a good place here coming up shortly. But I did make it down to Green Bay and totally ditched the Northern Wisconsin Muskies. Uh, the Northern Wisconsin Muskies were not being very nice to me. I go down to Green Bay where they usually are also not nice to me, and they were really nice to me. They actually decided to
Wow.
bite my lure quite a bit, and unfortunately for the guys with me, a lot of it more than them as well. And I don't know what it was.
Did you just stay
I
in the one
wasn't.
hole or what was going on there?
No, 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 no. That is I mean, there could be like a whole hour pod in itself of just like the shit that we did to get bites and everything. I kind of sort of want to leave a little bit of alone just for the, you know, I don't know, for the guides down there and just, buddies on bites and stuff because it seems like there's a few obvious Green Bay bites and then there's some a little bit more not so obvious Green Bay bites. So and we're on a fairly obvious place and bite, but we were also just doing something completely different. But no, to get the one day where we had a lot of action, I actually was running Jamie's boat that like whole
Oh,
day.
from the back.
And the story on why I was running his boat from the start and then why it stayed is super funny. So I was sitting in the two hole up on the front deck with Clayton and he was chucking, right out ahead of us perfectly, and I was throwing like I think a shallow invader on a 10-foot rod. And that thing with the flat side would just catch the wind and the terrible accuracy of a 10-footer. It just was flying out, and I'd be landing it like right on where Clayton casted, like as he casted there too. It'd be like, "Hey, what the hell, man?" I'm like, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry. It's a 10-footer. I'm sorry."
I
And then
know
it
how
was
we
like
feel up front.
two in a row. Two in a row, I blasted it right on where he casted, totally making it seem like, hey, give me the one spot type of deal, like making these shitty casts.
I've seen
And then
this
he's
before.
like, fine, I'll
Yeah.
just cast right out of the front. And he casted directly out of the front. And then Jamie, being a little bit of a jokester, just casts over the top of all of us from the back and lands it right on Clayton's lure from the back. So then, of course, he's got to go up to the front to retrieve that in. Um, so then I get out of the way because there's too many people in the front of the boat, and I just hop on his foot pedal in the back, and he's like, "You want to run the boat?" Kind of as a joke. I'm like, "Yeah, I want to run the boat." And like 5 minutes later, Mason, another buddy of Jamie's, was in the boat, gets throttled, and I'm like, just being a jackass, like, "Yeah, that was totally me," even though I
That
maybe
was the
touched the foot
guide.
pedal once or whatever. So I stayed with it, and then three hole caught one, and then I just stayed on the foot pedal the whole day, pretty
So they were
much.
all in the three hole?
That day.
Jeez.
The next day was, I guess, technically one hole, but it was on the opposite side of the boat because we were just trying to run all these spots like both sides because, Green Bay's no matter where you are in Green Bay, it's a massive fishery, tons of area, long spots. So we wanted to cover as much water as we could. So um, then I guess I was in the one hole
Canadian
there,
side,
but
one hole.
Canadian side, I guess,
Yeah.
whether depending on how we ran the spot, but no, it's cool. We about I guess all I'd be willing to give on information is that we did catch on a Huntsy tail prototype that I myself as well are extremely, extremely pumped about. I'll leave it at
Mm.
that. We'll see. I think that one's got some great
Wow.
things ahead.
Was that in the boat with us last weekend?
Yeah.
Mm.
What's
All right, let's get on to
Yeah.
this interview.
Yeah, I think we'll just yeah. We'll get
How
on
many
to
did you
this.
catch? How many did you catch?
We got eight in 2.5 days. I got six of them.
Yeah.
Um, no mega giants, but we saw some mega giants, and I caught a couple nice ones. So
Nice,
and
nice,
Attaboy,
nice.
attaboy, attaboy.
really sick figure eight eats. So
Figure eights.
That is true.
yeah,
Videos are awesome. Videos are awesome. But speaking of awesome, we got an awesome interview lined up for you guys here. We cover a large range of topics with Luke. So
Hmm.
um, sit tight. I think you guys are gonna enjoy this one.
I'm gonna pop into bed and look up these Japanese baits he brings up. He's got me hooked
yeah.
now.
Oh boy, Brian's been
Yeah.
on this little kick of just like looking up these little double and triple jointed glide baits.
Yeah.
Just asking about like how much are these? How much are these? Oh, 50? All right, all
All
right.
right, all right.
It's
Stay
like
tuned
maybe
for that
not.
though. He drops a lot of good baits, so fire it up.
All right, let her rip. Do you have like a guide service name, Luke, or is it just Luke Ronnestrand?
No, just
Book
just
me.
yeah, just health. Back in the day when like my dad and I, and then my business partner and I owned Musky Buster Holcomb Tackle. It was Musky Buster Guide Service, but like when I got, I don't think I ever reprinted a business card after Musky Buster, so it's just been Luke Ronnestrand.
Luke Ronnestrand. Well,
Is
there you
is
go.
is Musky Buster still around? I always thought that was like such a sweet name.
Yeah, no, it unfortunately is right. It's in a storage container right now, but I know it has a potential of resurfacing.
Oh,
Interesting.
Yeah,
Do you
possibly.
have the keys to said storage container?
No, not yet.
Gotcha.
Know where it is, and I know who to call.
I would get in line for some Musky Buster merch and also gear. But I always just found that name kind of sweet.
That was a fun company. Like that was a fun ride.
That's awesome. That's well, folks, the voice you hear on, or if you're viewing this on YouTube or Spotify, is Luke Ronnestrand. He's a first-time guest here. Pumped to have you on, Luke. Thanks for taking time out of your night to chat with us here. But I think we'll just kind of go. That was one little piece of history, I guess. We'll definitely be asking kind of like how you started getting into the muskie industry or just getting into fishing in general. But before that, how are you doing tonight?
Good man. How are you guys? I'm happy to be on talking muskies.
Doing great. Doing great. Thank you. Thank you. And yeah, I think we'll just start with maybe back in the day before we were recording here, there's already some awesome stories that you shared with us that we'll re-bring back up on the podcast here. But what got you into fishing in the first place?
My dad actually got me into this mess.
Nice.
Yeah, so I grew up. I was lucky enough to have a lake home. My grandma and grandpa had one, and then my parents bought the lot right next to theirs. But all through the years growing up, a lake home on the Holcomb Flowage. And,
Nice.
so
Yeah.
that's kind of where I cut my teeth muskie fishing and got to see. Like had all my first muskie encounters out there. Got to see the like first muskies of any size get caught. And then when I was 15 years old, a trip to Canada was kind of like what kind of cemented me as a muskie fisherman. They're just like just grab me.
So you said you've been doing this for 21 years, assuming that just means like the guiding business has been
Yeah.
going on for 21 years.
Yep. Guidance.
We've had a couple guides on the podcast now that have been doing it for, as long as you have and some even longer. And I always like hearing about those first couple years, like when you were really cutting your teeth and kind of getting things going and in your business off the ground and running. Like take us back to where that all started and what that was kind of like a young Luke Ronnestrand getting into guiding and how are you booking clients? How are you how are you taking people out? Like what was going on back then for you?
So I kind of had a little bit ahead, like of a head start in the industry side of things. Because my dad and we owned Holcomb Tackle and Musky Buster together from 1999 to 2006. And then one of my guests and friends bought my dad's half of the company, and then we ran that together from like '06 to 2012, 10, some 11, somewhere right in there. Um, and so my first year of guiding was actually 2005. But I had already kind of had like I was doing shows and I was in front of people at a pretty young age, and it was actually the year before we bought Musky Buster. I was at the Minnesota Musky Expo, so it would have been in 1998. I was still in high school, and I had a friend that had some Musky Buster lures there, and he was like, "Hey, could you sell these? Well, I got it. You had to go. I don't know if he had a meeting or what. He had a split for a couple hours." And I ended up selling like Musky Buster lures for a Friday evening at a show. And I was kind of like, I can do this. Yeah. So then just had the tackle company, kind of fell in, like, I want to say I started fishing. So I got to back up. I lived in the Twin Cities this whole entire time though, too. So I lived in the Minnesota metro area. That's where I grew up. I really haven't left here except to go to, except for having the Holcomb Floyd's Lake home. But I want to say probably, I don't know, maybe like 2002 or three, I kind of got the itch to like I was like, all right, well, I want to, own a tackle company and I want to guide. And so I kind of had an idea that I wanted to do the guiding things like that in 2003. And in 2004, like I fished my tail off, and like I really Mille Lacs was my primary lake back then, and I really got familiar with that lake, caught a bunch of nice fish. And then I also kind of fished vermilion at the same time, and that was kind of like that was a lake that I kind of fished sparingly. But in 2004, Bob Macecomer put on the musky fish that he put on his Simply fit like the Musky Classic. I want to say that was like a $2,500 buy-in, something like that for that tournament. It was almost full. I think it paid out like 80 grand first place, but Ty sent it and I got second place in that tournament. And that kind of gave me, but like my background in the industry with Musky Buster, and then that tournament finish, because that tournament they kind of hyped up for a couple of years, kind of gave me a springboard into like having some business and guiding. And then also I took, for the first couple of years, I took some overflow for Greg Thomas too. So
Nice.
Greg Thomas and Jason Hamrick, we all kind of lived together on Mille Lacs those first several years.
You dropped a couple names there, so I think we just want to just maybe throw a bookmark. Going into that tournament in Vermilion, you're fishing with Ty Senate. We've gotten to know Ty a good bit over the last couple of years, fishing the PMTT. Obviously knows a thing or two about fishing tournaments, as we've seen firsthand. And I'd be really interested to hear about how that tournament went. Like, did you guys know each other prior, very well to doing that tournament? What made you guys want to sign up for that? And then like, what was that tournament like? I mean, fishing for 80 grand, I'd imagine you guys were pretty young. I mean, that had to feel pretty legit. I mean, if you're catching fish and you obviously got pretty damn close to winning, I'd imagine.
Yeah, no. So Ty was actually one of the first industry people that I ever like became really, really good friends with. I think I was probably about 19 years old when Ty and I became friends. And I'd also like to add that he is my only friend that has not changed a bit since the day I met him. Right?
I could see that.
He has not changed one bit. He's an amazingly talented fisherman, probably like the best shallow water fisherman I've ever been around. And then that tournament, we were like young. I think what worked out really well for us is that we pre-fished just enough where like we didn't spend a ton of time up there. I think we maybe had like a couple of weekends and a random Tuesday, and we had just enough spots and just figured out just enough not to be overwhelmed in that tournament. That was a cool tournament. It was a basically like a 3-fish qualifier or 3-day qualifier, and then on the 4th day the top 20 fished, but obviously like your fish from the previous 3 days kept you in it if you had enough points. And then the last day the top 10 fished, and we were lucky enough that Ty got a 41. It was like a 4-footer the first day, and then that fish carried us all the way to Sunday, and then I got like a 42-incher on Sunday or something, 41 or 42-incher on Sunday. So
Nice. So it was overall tough tournament.
Yeah, it was a tough bite for sure. Like there's definitely being like having a lot more experience now. There's a lot of opportunities I'd like back.
Yeah.
Sure.
Like what? Like just fish that you guys had
Bad figure 8, like just like bad figure and things like that. A few I remember, and I did lose a fish, another fish on the last day of the tournament.
Oh.
Just threw a glider up into shallow water and was popping the bait with my rod tip up, which I very rarely land. Or like hooking percentage on bites when they eat like that is really horrible, and I knew better. Like I didn't have to do that. But other than that, like it was cool. I can't remember. I mean, I know we won. I think we won north of 25 grand for that tournament. And then to tell you how the tournament went, when we got our check, the MC looked at us and said, "Well, this should about cover your guys' bar tab for the week." So
I'm sure Ty did some damage in helping you out with that.
Oh yeah, we had a lot of fun that week. We drank beer out of our cups at the tournament at the AV or whatever. So,
hell yeah,
that's awesome.
It was a good time.
Was that like your first tournament experience pretty much? And what year was that again?
That was 04. No, I want to say my friend Chris Jensen and I won our Metro tournament in 2001. I think I caught my first 50-incher in that tournament in 2000.
Nice.
Yeah, so we got 2 fish there or whatever in that. I'd had a little bit of a tournament success. And then following that tournament, like we used to have a Minnesota Musky tournament trail that was on Mille Lacs, Vermilion, Cass, and Leech. And then it was the Metro tournament and Minnetonka. And we used to do pretty well in those back in the day.
So when you were a young guy back then and doing, relatively extremely well in these events, and I'm sure it was going up against people that have been fishing these bodies of water for a long time, or guys that were, musky fishing for a long time. Did you feel like you were doing anything differently, or just like bringing a different mindset to it, or like what made you think that you guys were having this success? Like I just kind of curious on that.
Right, like so back, we were really lucky that we were on like the front end of like some of the cowgirl bite, obviously cowgirls, bulldogs. Probably my biggest advantage in those tournaments was just like being that I guided on those lakes. Like those were my bread and butter. However, what's funny is like, in all of the years of like doing tournaments on Vermilion and Mille Lacs, I think between Mille Lacs and Vermilion, I probably have like 7 second place finishes in tournaments. The ones that we've won have all been Metro tournaments where I don't spend a lot of time. Like we won our Minnetonka champions in a row, and that was literally just showed up. We're like, I don't know where we're gonna. Looks like we gotta figure something out.
It's like it's telling you to come back.
So we're gonna
back.
We're gonna jump pretty far up in the timeline, I think. Maybe not. You can tell me if I'm wrong. But one of the Tucker questions that he texted me to ask you was about the Minnesota Muskie Trail win on Tonka. And he said, I think you and Gus would get a kick out of that one. So I don't know what that means, but if you remember what tournament he's talking about and how that one went down, I'd be curious to hear about that.
Probably it might have been like the first one, the first year. And that was, I had literally guided on Mille Lacs until like the day of like fishing in the rules meeting, or maybe we fished the evening before the rules meeting. But I remember we fished It had to have been. Yeah, it was like the rules meeting day. We fished and we just ran out and fished and we saw one fish and was like, oh well, this sucks. And then when we were at, I want to say the rules meeting may have been at Thorn Brothers for this, the old store and on 47. And a guy named Matt Johnson was guiding bass out there that day, and he happened to be throwing like this. Remember when Storm made the kicking minnows? Like
Hmm. I'm
uh,
not sure.
it was it was a soft, like an 8-inch soft swim bait, 9-inch soft swim bait, but it had a little lip on it. It sank. They were like horribly made, but fish love to eat them. But they hit like a size, a 9-inch size, and he was like, "Yeah, I was fishing in the channels with a storm kicking minnow, and like I caught a muskie and I lost a muskie." And my buddy CJ and I were like, "Oh, really? Oh, all right." So we literally both went and like filled up 2 bags of storm kicking minnows, went just fish shallow, and ended up winning the tournament.
Jeez. It always pays off to talk to those bass guys. They seem like they just love giving up information. They're like, I saw a muskie here, I caught a muskie here, I lost a muskie here, and they're like, they just like want to give it up. It's so funny.
Well, I've done a lot of bass fish. Like I've fished bass really hard now for probably the last 10, 12 years. And I used to fish. There was a tournament circuit here in the Midwest. It was Cabela's put it on. It was the NABC. And it was four tournaments, and they're kind of all over the place. We fished on like the Winnebago chain. We fished Mille Lacs. We fished Vermilion. We fished Sturgeon Bay, Pokegama, just a whole bunch of the river. But I'll say I learned like I want to say the years that I did that were like 2012, 13, 14. And fishing those tournaments and like really learning how to bass fish like really helped my muskie fishing. Just because it helped with looking at like when I muskie fished, it was primarily like you fished like a really obvious maybe not just where I fished. Like you fish really obvious spots. You fish like big points. You fish weed lines. I mean, obviously you looked for an inside turn. You looked for like maybe where the densest weed growth was, or like you paid attention to like wind and water temperature and a lot of things. But like that with bass fishing, like you really sometimes have to really dissect the spot and like get up on top. And like I definitely learned a lot more about like more looking for more intricacies in some of the spots. And then also like really dialing in your presentation, like really dialing in color,
Right.
really dialing in like when we talk about spring setups, like really dialing in like your line, your leader weight, leader type to get the best out of lures and get the most action, things like that. Like I really learned a lot of that from bass fishing.
That makes
Sure.
sense. I mean, I've been dabbling a little bit in the bass fishing, and there's some days where you just throw a jerk bait and they chow it, and life is good and whatnot. But as soon as they don't want to eat that, and you got to go finesse, and you got to change up your leaders, and you got to have maybe a longer leader, a smaller bait. Uh, Color definitely can play a role, but yeah, that like spot on spot. I don't know if maybe you mean more so. It seems like musky guys, if you just watch any tournament or popular lake, it's just ring around the rosy, find the edge, follow the edge, and go. Rarely do I ever see people, get up on a spot
Yeah.
when musky fishing and really take a look or, understand where that musky came from off of that spot. So it makes sense that the smallmouth have kind of helped you with that, but they're primarily rock fish. I don't know. Do you find smallies and weeds often or
Depends on the body of water.
yeah.
Like for like on they use a lot of different types of structure,
Hmm.
especially really like the obviously cattails, like they grow in hard bottom, but you'll find smallmouth there, and the cattails you'll find them in like the red cabbage, the broadleaf cabbage in the bays. They seem to really like that. Obviously you'll find them on the rocks, you'll find them in the sand. I get along with smallmouth really well because I feel like they're fairly random, like muskies are. Like
Yeah.
they kind of march to the beat of their own drum, and like I kind of appreciate that about them, especially in lakes where they're, can be like when we used to fish lakes that would have like when largemouth and smallmouth would play. Some of those lakes had a little bit more limited smallmouth, but like you could never completely count on a smallmouth bite. Like sometimes they would they would be at a spot and then they'd be gone the next day, and it's just I would kind of appreciate a little bit of their randomness.
I'll let Gus ask you some more smallmouth questions in a bit, but
No.
I do want to go. I want to go back. We were kind of working down the timeline here, and you had mentioned, I think and it's correct me if I'm wrong, but you said so you met Ty at an early age, and then you stumbled across Greg Thomas at some point in time, and then did you say that you, Greg, and Ty all lived together?
Oh, Hammerneck.
Oh,
Oh,
Greg.
Greg, and Hammernick lived together at one point in time. So were all three of you guys guiding at that point, and like, was it just? I mean, what was what was that living situation like?
No, it was good. I mean, like it was kind of crazy. Like it was, we always grew up like in a fishing situation where it was like we all trusted each other, so like you could share like information really freely. But then like, and then like you would just never dream of going and fishing the spot that Jason was on at Moon, or like when they were biting. Like because we all had like kind of a healthy respect for each other. We all kind of had our areas of the lake that we liked, and we very rarely wound up like fishing on top of each other. And so it was good. I definitely learned a lot about like being a good guide from those guys. Like Greg to this day like still amazes me because there's days like when you fish the sand on the north end, you can that's a big area, but you're fishing around people, and I would you'd maybe start out kind of close to each other, and like you'd see Greg start out with his guest and they like could barely cast. And then like 2 hours later, you check in and be like, "Oh, how's it going?" And be like, "Oh, we got a 51 incher today." And I'd be like, "Oh, what'd you catch it on?" And he'd be like, "No, man, Bob got it on a lunging tail." And be like, "Wait, that guy caught a muskie?" Yeah. I mean, he had a really good knack of getting his guests fish, and like I was learning that he had a real like there's definitely it takes work,
Yeah.
to get your guest fish and knowing what lures are going to work best for them and positioning your boat so like they can make the best cast. And he was always really good at that. And then Jason had really good boat control, and then his like timing of like when to be where was pretty impeccable. I mean, back
Mhm.
then, like majors and minors, like those fish were like almost like robots. Like, you just knew when they were going to bite.
Was this when Greg was giving money away on his bad guide trips? You
Yeah.
kind of shared that story with us. If you want to
Oh yeah.
bring
Like
that one up again, that was pretty funny.
I joke. I lived with Greg through the what I would call like his dark years. He'll say were his pre-medicated years.
Yeah.
Yeah, he would go, and I think my favorite was he caught a big fish in like one of the Bemidji tournaments, and I think he did really well. I think he won it or got first or second. Caught it like a 54 incher, and I could be slightly off on some of this, but I'm sure this is about 90% accurate. And I remember like the next day or something. So at one of the houses that we lived in on Mille Lacs was one of Hoppy's buddies, Brad Hoppy's buddies. So Brad he was there quite often too. So I think we were all getting ready to go out on our guide trips in the morning, and Brad's like, "Hey, go ask Greg where his trophy is." I was like, "What? What do you like? What?" He goes, "Yeah, just go ask him where his trophy is." And so I'm like, "Greg, where's your Bemidji trophy?" He's like, "Oh, it's in a cornfield just north of Aiken somewhere." And I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, I threw it out the window." And I was like, "Why?" Freaking mad at it. He goes, "Well, I didn't figure out those spots. Like somebody told me about them the week before." But said he didn't deserve it. So
Wow.
There was also like you would go there were times that like you would go and you get them like some like as the Musky Buster like days. You get them like some Musky Buster clothing, and then like you would walk by the bonfire pit, and there would be like smoldering musky clothes, like shirts and sweatshirts, anything that had a musky on it would just be like burning. And he's like, just like, what is going on? He's like, I had to burn something. But then that story that I referenced earlier was there was also times when you would like he would go out and he'd have a like maybe they'd have a skunk day, and like they happened even back in the day. And like you'd be digging through your raincoat, the next day you'd find like $500 in your pocket. You'd come home and be like, "Hey Greg, why do I have $500 in my pocket?" He goes, "Well, that's my money from yesterday. I didn't deserve it, so I figured I'd give it to you."
Jesus.
Like it was absolutely hilarious. We always used to joke around too. He used to beat you down on the phone pretty good though. Like if you were catching fish, it was how deep, what kind of lure, fast, slow, what color.
Yeah, that hasn't changed.
Yeah, that's about the same. Same Greg.
Yeah,
Pre-fishing a tournament. He's texting. He's like, "How's it going?
He's
Getting
such
any?"
a hoot. Oh man, that's good stuff. I'd imagine there wasn't too many dull moments between you guys back then. Just all three of you going out and just
no,
smashing fish and fishing nonstop. That'd be pretty cool.
yeah, we got out. We actually did get out fishing a fair amount. Like if our guests quit early or if we got up there on the night, like Jason and I would fish. Like we'd get up there the night before our guide trips and get out a little bit, and then Greg and I too. Like yeah, it was a good time. Those are fun days.
Oh, I bet.
Oh yeah. So
I
what
bet.
that yeah, I kind of I think we maybe went right past it, but
Also,
I
hey
guess
Brian.
how and here we got Brian on the line too here.
Especially late.
Yeah,
Welcome,
appreciate you
Brian.
joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. A little caught up in
Um
work. Luke, good to see you.
Good to see you too, man.
right on. How did you was it I'm still trying to wrap my head around this of just like living with Jason, Greg, yourself. Uh how did you said that Greg and Hammernick were already guiding
Yeah,
up there on Relax?
yeah. I want to say like Jason probably started guiding. So Jason's a bit. So Greg and I are about the same age. Greg's a little bit maybe. I think Greg is a year older than me. I think Jason is at least Jason's closer to Ty's age. He's probably like 53 or 4.
Okay.
But Jason started guiding, I think, probably in like the late 90s or like 2000, something like that.
Gotcha. Nice. Um, so I don't know what we want to get into at
I,
all now if you
well,
got something on your mind.
I don't know how many minutes we're into this, and we haven't even brought up Vermilion, which is like
Yeah.
self-serving, what I'm probably most excited to talk about.
Right.
Just because it's a lake Gus and I got to a couple years ago when the PMTT went up there. Um, we found some relative success. I think you and your partner took maybe second or third. I don't know, Gus, what we placed in that one. We were right.
A eighth or 10th.
I don't know. We were
Yeah.
right kind of around you guys, but we like fell in love with the lake. We just absolutely loved it. I mean, we had, I had at that point had done a little bit of stuff in Minnesota, and Vermilion was a whole different animal. And we got up there on like Tuesday, and we just felt like kids in a candy store. It was just so much fun, a million different spots to fish. And since then, we've done a couple other trips up there. We did our first Vermilion November trip last year. Brian joined and just had such a blast. So I guess, just kind of segueing into the Vermilion thing, like when did you start? You mentioned you kind of were going up there sparingly back in the day, but when did it really kind of start to kick off, or what was it about Vermilion for you that made you want to like make that kind of home for guiding?
Well, I've always like loved fishing like the Shield in Canada.
Hmm.
And obviously like Vermilion is like that northeast part of Minnesota is kind of like the start of the Shield. And I started fishing that one, Green Bay and Mille Lacs, like all about the same time. But that one I did like a little bit more. Like Mille Lacs was kind of home, and then I would go up to like Vermilion on weekends, or we would go and we would do trips kind of trips up there. And then I would just take kind of like the same. I had like my business partner from Musky Buster, like him and his kids. Like I would go out and fish with them for like 4 days, or I typically had, I would do a couple like back to back 2 3 day trips. So I kind of go up there for a block of time, and then we had our Minnesota Muskie tournament trail up there. So we had that. And then how I eventually kind of wound up there for it being my full time lake was in like 2006, 7, and 8, 9, and 10. I would go up there and I would fish a lot in the fall. And I want to say like 8, 9, and 10, I probably did like a good solid. I kind of left Mille Lacs in the fall and went and just fished up there for 5 straight weeks. And I was staying at Vermilion Dam for most of it. And in I want to say in like 2000, by the time 2010 had rolled around, like I was guiding Vermilion, I was guiding Mille Lacs, I was guiding on Miltona, West Battle, and Minnetonka, and I was doing all of those lakes. And I just had a horrible year with like trailer issues, trailer tires, truck issues, truck tires, driving all over the place. And I was complaining to Ed, the owner of Vermilion Dam Lodge, Ed Tosk. I was complaining to him about just like how travel sucked. I was just bitching about everything. And he's like, well, why don't you just come and stay with us and just make Vermilion your full-time lake? I was like, oh, that's a great idea.
That's sweet.
Do that. And then in 2000 like 11, that was my first year. It was kind of funny though, like Vermilion is always at that point, like Vermilion was really well known for like its summer fishing and its late fall fishing, but it was kind of known as like, like September and early October, mid-October, it can be kind of tough. And I remember like John Hoyer is also a really good buddy of mine. And I told him my plan. I was like, yeah, I'm going to make Vermilion my full-time lake. Like, and this was back to like June was also not a very well, like it was just musky. Nobody really knew a lot about musky fishing in June up there back then. And I told John, I'm like, yeah, Vermilion's going to be my full-time lake. And he looked at me and goes, you're probably mentally stable enough to make Vermilion your full-time lake. Like it definitely was like a little bit of a
backhanded compliment.
Yeah, no, it was definitely because I mean it wasn't. I definitely like this at that time of like Vermilion was kind of like it was good, but as far as like that first Minnesota boom, like it was kind of like it was full of big fish, but it definitely had gotten harder, and like the Western Minnesota stuff was just going nuts then. So I was kind of I was definitely like knew I wasn't gonna like win any like catch more 50 inchers than anybody, or like it was always Jason, Greg, and I were always kind of like that was kind of like our little competition was like who had more 50 inchers at the end of the year. And then like I knew I wasn't gonna catch more fish or more 50 inchers than them, but I knew I was gonna have a shot at like catching a lot of really really big ones, and just I appreciated the challenge, and also like having to learn. Like just basically had to learn to catch fish up there in June and learn the September and October thing. And now like fast forward September and October, early October are some of my favorite times of the year to be up there.
Unreal. What what kind of gave you the hint on what to do in June to get those muskies? Like when did you finally like know that you kind of had to go to open water, or maybe if there's some other bites that go on? I just know that Vermilion was kind of what I've heard of kind of the birthplace of some true open water fishing, like
Yeah,
completely structureless fishing.
yeah, definitely was having some friends that had a background in open water fishing in Wisconsin
Okay.
was kind of
Interesting.
how that happened. And then probably too, I would have to say like we caught some open water fish, like just kind of playing around, going out there and casting some walk the dog topwaters at Cisco's that were popping around. But the headlock coming out and trolling and like that bait just being like that good was just definitely kind of opened your eyes to what was out there. And then as as you're trolling and you're catching fish and you're putting down waypoints, all of a sudden it like started to really kind of like certain areas like really started to show themselves as being like spots.
When you first got your hands on a headlock, did you instantly feel like that was going to be a bait that would produce for you guys, or was it one of those things where like, we hear these stories about when like the cowgirl came out and people were like, "Oh my God, this is too big. It's not going to catch anything." And the bulldog comes out and people are like, "This ugly piece of rubber is not going to catch anything." And then obviously, those were baits that were like ahead of their times and kind of led charges on some of these Minnesota bites. What were your thoughts when the headlock came out and when you first got your hands on that thing?
Well, you'll appreciate this. So I'll have to just tell a little backstory. So there was a guide on Vermilion that like through a buddy, like through a couple buddies, like he got on the open water bite like a little faster than the rest of us. And like he told me about it and I was just like, like whatever, that's cool. Like I basically just told him like, hey, I'm not going to come jump on your pattern. I'm like, you won't see me out there for I want to say a couple seasons. Cause we were still like, for me, I was still finding enough fish on like the deep weed edges and like deeper structure. Like we were still catching fish and having fun. And I told Matt, I'm like, and plus like, I don't want to jump on your trolling thing. Like I've anything I want to go out there, I want to learn how to cast it. So like, I didn't run a headlock until 2010 or 11. But like Duff used to bring small batches into the shop and like, they used to come in like 6s and 10s, at a time. And, it was like a Canadian trip that I was on. I want to say it was like 2010. It was up on the Winnipeg River. And we had just had one of those like September horrible, like northwest wind, like could hardly fish, like snowing in September. And I remember we were like hunkered down in the Rough Rock Narrows. And I had just like 2 trolling rods along and I grabbed the lure and it was a walleye, had like a full size walleye headlock was all he made. He hadn't mat locks or 10 inchers weren't a thing yet. And I put it on a rod and I just went from one side of the channel to the next. And there was like a saddle with like a 20-foot high spot. And I was like, I'm just going to troll this thing across this high spot or whatever. And we'll just go fish that spot. So I threw the rod out, I put the rods, I want to say I didn't even put it in the rod holder. Just like both these stories I'm going to tell are the exact same. And like I put the rod like just behind my seat and just kind of held onto it and then just idled across the channel. And rod goes off and it was 3.5 incher. And it was, and he reels it in. It's like, oh, that's freaking cool. And then we trolled around quite a bit more like the rest of that trip. But I had some 12-inch big games and those couple of headlocks. And we caught some fish trolling. It was like, all right, this is sweet. So then went back home, back down to Vermilion or whatever, and I'm fishing and there. And it was right after I do the Larry Ramsell now, but before, so this would have been 2010. Because the years before the 2010 or 11, I always came up and I started guiding on Vermilion right after the Larry Ramsell event. And so it would have been like the Monday after the Ramsell event. And it was cool. Like for whatever reason, we got on fish right away with just swim baits and bulldogs. But again, had a super windy day and we were fishing in the Wake 'em Up Narrows. And we had a good bite, caught a couple fish in the morning, and there was just a series of points that we were drifting. And right off the last point before like it went out into the basin, we kept on having this big fish that kept coming up and chasing. And it wouldn't come up high in the water column, but every time we drifted over. And then I was just like, I was idling, or I was just jumping back up on plane, starting to drift over. And this time instead, I was like, oh, I got this headlock. I'm like, I'm just going to troll this thing over that point and see what happens. And I threw the headlock 40 feet behind the boat and drove 5.5 miles an hour, went across the tip of the point, and that fish just absolutely destroyed it. And it was a 55.5 incher.
Oh,
so that's literally the first minute that I ever had a headlock in the water in Minnesota. And then,
Wow.
like
That is
the
instant
Is
follow,
that good?
success.
yeah,
Is that any good?
the follow up that success, the next year, out in Green Bay, fishing in Menominee Marinette, I got like one of the first ever. My buddy CJ got one of the first ever 10-inch mat or headlocks, and we put that thing on a planer board and we're trolling it around, and it too like ripped like right when we got it. Like it wasn't. I was like told CJ like I wonder if this freaking magic's gonna happen. Like a couple minutes we're gonna have a fish, and the freaking rod goes off. But it was like a mid 50-inch sturgeon that I snagged right in the back.
Oh,
But I was like, "Hey, it's unbelievable. But like 8 hours later that day, we got one that was like just shy of 50 with a big girth on that headlock. So every body of water that I put one of those in, like for the first time, we got a big fish on. It was wild. Like
Even
productive.
that's crazy. Even with the sturgeon, you're holding a pretty good average there.
but it was wild. Like I don't think like there's like everybody talks about the bulldog craze and the cowgirl craze, rightfully so, because those were like incredible. But that headlock matlock thing in Minnesota was pretty unbelievable too. Like I think it was on par. It was just more of a trolling thing.
Back
Gotcha.
when you were figuring out that open water bite, you obviously didn't have the technology we do now. Were you like the headlock bite was great, matlock bite, but did you kind of stick to trolling then, or were you out there kind of blind casting, or how did you break that down when you were figuring it out?
So because of all the success that we had trolling, like I put waypoints down on everything, every caught fish, every lost fish, every rip. And then I want to say we probably had some form of side imaging by then too. I want to say like Lorette, like I ran, I think LSS1 came out in like 2013 or 2014. I remember having that. But no, just because we had so much success, like it only took about a year of good trolling for me to figure out enough spots to go out and be able to like just cast clusters of waypoints to catch fish. But like, so the first year that I really cast out there, I had all these like spots, that were basically like clusters of waypoints where we caught them. But then like one of the most eye-opening days ever was we had a super crazy windy day. And like I'm trying to fish these like clusters of waypoints like they're spots. And like we were catching fish, but we had caught one and we were drifting, and then when we let it go, so we're 100 200 yards away from where we hooked it because it was so windy, and my guest just stood up and made a cast like without me saying like no, I want to drive back up and start, go back to the spot, and he caught one. I was just, oh, okay. So then, like we let that one go. I'm like, all right, well, let's just keep drifting. And he caught, like he cooked one or caught another one. And it kind of turned into just, like there's so many fish that were out there. It was just kind of mind blowing, honestly. Like certain parts of the lake, like Vermilion's in a great spot population wise now. But I mean, it's still, I don't think we probably have half the fish that we had back then.
Oh
That's
no.
what I was gonna ask that. How has that
Yeah.
population kind of changed since you
Yeah,
started going up?
we have a lot of young fish in the lake right now, but like it honestly was like mind blowing how many like population density, and then from like 2010 through 2020, 2021, like how many big fish we had in there. It was like pretty incredible.
Did you feel like you kind of had stumbled on like a gold mine at that point? Like you said when you were kind of figuring that out. I mean,
Well,
I don't know if this is a bad way to ask, but like how close to the chest did you kind of keep that bite at that point in time?
super close. Like I definitely learned, like I learned lessons from, like I really didn't talk about the fall vermilion bite at all either. Like I definitely, like I turned down doing like Sarek's show a couple times. back in the day on Vermilion in the fall because I didn't want to blow that up. Like I didn't show I didn't show hardly any pictures of anything that we did there because like that probably like the first big thing that I kind of saw all of us definitely kind of shoot ourselves in the foot with where it was like that late fall mille lacs bite, you know, and like everybody is putting like little write-ups in Musky Hunter and talking about it and pictures everywhere. And I watched that go from just being a handful of us, you know, like a few guides and like a couple guys that were just out there all the time to like just where you couldn't, like it became really hard sometimes or something.
Yeah.
So like that would have been like 2006, 6-ish, you know, like maybe 7, 8. Those years were just so hard on mille lacs just because of the people. So I definitely learned from that. So like Vermilion in the fall, I kept that. So like that was really amazing. And then obviously like Vermilion in the fall was a really amazing bite. I got to see some of the really amazing things happen on Green Bay. Some incredible bites out there. And so yeah, by the time that open water thing rolled around, like I remember just like having to just hide like my bloody hands from my friends.
Yeah.
Like just
One
Where if you go golfing, just be the, you know, the double glove guy. Just like, aren't you gonna take off your gloves to putt? No,
no.
no, no, it's all good.
Yeah.
it was
Tucker asked me to ask you because just it only reminded me because you're talking about Vermilion in the fall. A story on how many fish you moved off one reef in the fall on Vermilion one time.
oh god, so I have a couple good ones. Well, there's the one that he's talking about was off of merry-go-round. And like there's sometimes I feel like I remember the story.
Well,
Uh-oh.
Going down.
Going down.
When I feel like I remember the story like really accurately, I feel like we had like somewhere between I don't know, to say around 20 fish follow off of one spot. And they came out like it was like you throw a cast up there and then like you'd have one follow. And then you'd throw a cast up there and then like 2 would follow. And then it just turned into like fish following fish off of this reef. And then they're
like
just
saltwater.
they're just all
Yeah.
around the boat. And we not a single one of them bit. Like I don't
Nice.
think we were close to catching any of them. But it was just nuts. And then there was another time there was a reef on Nyberg, where we hooked like 10 muskies in one pass on that thing and caught like 2 of them.
What?
But that would have been the merry-go-round story is from like fall of 2006, and then the Nyberg story is probably like September 2011 or 12, 13, something like that.
What do you think made all those? Oh, go ahead, Gus. Sorry.
Well, I was just gonna say, like you said, none of them bit off of the merry-go. Is that normal, or do you catch fish off of that spot, or is that just the looker spot?
It was definitely I would say it was probably a little bit of inexperience. You know, like I'd love that.
Sure.
I'd feel for that opportunity now.
Right.
But it was flat calm. It was flat calm, and it was also like crazy warm too. And it probably was like the day of the full moon too, probably. So there's a lot of interesting factors that didn't go our way, but we were probably throwing mag dogs, should have been throwing pounders. And there's lots of things.
Yeah. Yeah, those and again, we're real elementary in the Vermilion knowledge and but like what do you think makes fish pile into spots like that? And I mean, it feels like those Vermilion fish, at least on the rocks, are pretty transient.
Mm-hmm.
Like they kind of just bounce around and I mean, is either just following the food or just time of the day, like sliding up on certain spots.
I'm sure like that was definitely a forage situation. Like that was right in this probably the start of like the whitefish spawn, like the whitefish and Cisco spawn on that end. But I will say one thing that was like those lakes at that point, you know, muskies would have been in them for about, so that would have been 2006. They would have been, muskies would have been in there for about like not quite 20 years yet. And like the same thing with mille lacs, like, and all these stocked fisheries, like as the fish kind of like find their way, I think you had like 90% of the fish were using 10% of the lake.
Hmm.
Like lakes hadn't
Interesting.
really like naturalized yet, or however the muskies hadn't established themselves, or however you want to phrase that. Like they just like there was they definitely like Mille Lacs was a really like a big example of that. It was like the year that muskies like found, like figured out that they could use and exist out in the open water. There was like that summer between 2007 or yeah, the year 2008. Like it was a cold spring, and the muskies, just a lot of them just stayed out, like stayed out. A lot. It was kind of funny. Like you heard, I think we did a show with Broski. Like Broski did a YouTube thing on like what happened to Mille Lacs, what happened to Vermilion, and all these lakes, and like that. Like there were all these theories on like what happened to the Mille Lacs muskies. Like did they die? Did they go out? Did they run out the rum? And it was just like no, they just figured out that there's all kinds of food they can eat out on the mud flats. And like there's the people that stuck to Mille Lacs and like fished in like 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and like they ate a few skunks, had some really tremendous big fish fishing, because like they just
Sure.
weren't on structure, like every day like they were previously. It's kind of
Gotcha. And did that kind of happen with Vermilion? Did you start to see more and more use open water? And then any like differences maybe in the last 5 to 10 years? 'Cause not to go back too much further, I kind of had a question actually before that, about pressure. When
mhm.
do you think in all your years guiding did you see the most pressure on Mille Lacs and Vermilion? Like when were the years where you're like, holy shit, there's just people everywhere. I don't if it was a bite that blew up or just the lake blew up.
I would say like mostly because obviously like COVID, because Canada was cold, was Canada was closed, was a really big year for pressure. Um, I would say it would have been in like that 2005, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, like that era for sure. Um,
Gotcha. Yeah.
and as far as like the biggest change that I've seen in on Vermilion, I would say probably happened like between 2015 and 2020, when we got spiny water fleas. Like I think that pulled a lot of perch offshore, and
Okay.
that really changed things. And I also think in the last 10 years there's less perch on the east end of the lake than there used to be, and the muskies are real on the east end are really hitting like they're really eating a lot of Cisco's now. Because
Interesting.
you can see the way they're built. Like those big bay muskies, like in the summertime, like you used to get a fat one every now and again, back in the day, but now they're all just giant Cisco eaters.
Hmm.
Like they're not that much smaller in the summertime than they are in the late fall up there.
God,
What do
even
you
think back to
Interesting.
Brian's fish from this November. So tiny, it was 40 incher, but it was built like a 46.
Yeah, it was blimped out.
Yeah, we get some crazy big ones up there, but not. I mean, they don't hold a candle on average to Mille Lacs as far as girth, but they're really nice fish.
What
Is
the
Oh, I was just gonna ask on size fish. Sorry, Brian. Um, does Mille Lacs hold some of like the biggest head to tail, like blimped out fish compared to
It,
say like Green Bay even?
yeah, I don't like Green Bay. I haven't spent enough time on Green Bay lately. I think the Blackfish get bigger girths, and I still don't know. I don't know that there's any place in the Midwest where more 57-inch muskies get caught than Mille Lacs. Like it seems like you talk to enough people and you hear about like another 57-incher that got caught out of Mille Lacs, or 57 and change. Like it's a pretty ridiculous place. Like
Yeah. I mean, but I think for us, like maybe Mille Lacs kind of felt a little bit more untouchable for us. I mean, Gus, we've run tillers our entire life, and I think maybe that's a little bit what what drew us to the Vermilion thing is it's a little bit more combat fishing, kind of what we're used to, fishing structure, stuff like that. I mean, I'm showing Luke Ronnestrand a picture of a 40 incher on the east side, but like, I mean, yeah, these fish are just blimped out. Like it was, they're built so cool
Yeah.
on Vermilion, and yeah, it's just we've always thought of it as kind of the big fish, capital of Minnesota too, in a way. I mean, it
Yeah.
feels like you hear some stories of freaky big fish being seen or caught out of Vermilion.
It used to be, I would say that like I still tell people this, like there, I don't know, I I don't know if it's necessarily the truest statement now, but like for a very long time, there wasn't a better place to go catch a 53 to 56 incher than Lake Vermilion. Like that was like you definitely the amount of like of your 50 inchers, the amount of them that were um like of those fish that were like the plus size 50s. Um
Right.
I always felt like since I've really tried, like I've really put an emphasis on like my clients catching fish. Like it's not, so I have some guests that are great fishermen. I have some guests that are, that are still getting better. And I watch a lot of big muskies get lost and screwed up. So we only boat. I mean, I boat anywhere from a dozen to 17. We had 17 over 50 a few years ago. Um, but the amount of those fish that were like that are 53 to 55 inches, and then we've got four between 56. We got 4 56 inchers out of Vermilion, but just a lot of 54 and 55 inchers.
And do
What?
you
Yeah.
feel, oh, go ahead, Brian. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm just curious. I mean, like you said, it feels like from Lake Vermilion's heyday to now, like your muskie population's cut in half. What are all like the factors into that? What's kind of the thing to point the blame for?
Well, it's not. It wasn't. I don't definitely like just there's a major cutback in stocking from between like 2010, probably between 2012 and 2018. There's a basically the lake was built off of like 3 to 7,000 fish a year, something like that. Like there's basically, my numbers aren't going to be completely accurate here, but there's roughly like 47,000 fish stocked in like 11 years. And then there was an 8 or 9 period of time where there was like 11,000 fish stocked. But then now in the last 7, 8 years, something like that, we've had a pretty significant amount of fish stocked, relatively speaking. And you definitely see that. Like you see those younger fish coming up, and there's some really strong year classes. Big, like I'm actually really happy with where the lake is. And when I say it was cut in half, I mean it was like Vermilion was arguably like a top 10 fishery in the world when it was at its peak. And now I'd still say that it's still like it's still one of the better places to go musky fishing in Minnesota.
Yeah. Kind of going back to those big fish. Do you feel like that those real 50 plus like megas, really just kind of like work to their own tune? Like, do they behave super differently, or have you caught them at times like maybe just moseying on a spot where you've had activity and it's like, oh, boom, there's a 55 out of nowhere, or those big ones fish you've like hunted for weeks on end, or just how do you feel like they behave?
Some of them, like there is definitely some West Side muskies that like I would see every year, and kind of like had a good like had a good kind of idea of almost like a deer, like a hunter, like a deer hunter is really familiar with. Um, where you knew if you fished this couple of areas repeatedly, like you were gonna run across those fish. But other like honestly, with Vermilion, like if you would have asked me like how to pattern big fish, like in 2015, I probably could have wrote you like a novel on how to target big ones versus medium ones versus small ones. But now all I can tell you is just to go out and just be catching muskies. Like there's really is no way to pattern. I mean, obviously, like the open water night, even like nighttime fishing is by far your best way to get a big one. But if you're just going to go out and fish structure, like your best route to catching a big one is just being on fish.
Hmm.
Yeah, and we saw a
Makes
little bit of
sense.
that in November when we were up there. It was like we finally figured out kind of our pattern and felt really good about what we were doing. And it was like the spots we were fishing, we caught fish anywhere from the low 30-inch range, and then randomly we'd get a bite from a big one.
Hmm.
So it really didn't feel like there was much of a method to the madness. I don't know, Gus, if you agree with that or not, but
I agree.
um,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of how it certainly felt. We didn't do any, night fishing and stuff. We're not really our jam. So
Back in the day, like I used to feel like you had like just because of like the West End is smaller, the basins are smaller. When you got like those like kind of the glass flat calm, like sunny, like your less than ideal conditions, like those that put giant fish shallow down there.
hmm.
So that was a really good opportunity to target big fish. Another one that used to be like it's maybe counterintuitive, but is like when the lake is turning over is a great chance for big ones on Vermilion, especially on the west side. Um,
Hmm.
Still get big fish doing that every year. Like that's a big fish window. Um, but those are definitely two like kind of like really interesting windows that were good for big ones. Um, and then back on in Mille Lacs back in the day, it seemed to like those fish with all those definitely getting off the beaten path just a little bit with spots. Going back to Greg, there was a Greg used to have a like a little patch of weeds in the Malmo area of the lake that we called the pod. That was basically like a 2 acre weed bed that Greg like literally lived in. Like I don't know how he did it, but I mean he could have had a PO box set there. Like if it wasn't too windy to fish there, like he was there, and he caught all kinds of fish, and he caught all kinds of big ones out of there, but not like the super giants. Like I think the biggest that he ever boated out of there was maybe one that was just shy of 54 inches that Kerry Hoppy got. But then there was another patch of weeds that was maybe like a half mile away, maybe not quite a half mile away, that didn't get near the pressure that was on the same exact contour that like used to throw out giants. And that was because people didn't fish that one as much. And I literally think that Greg kept like the super big fish out of that one spot. Like so,
Just Greg himself.
and then just definitely like Garrison Bay back in the day, like that didn't get a lot of pressure. We got a lot of really long fish out of Garrison Bay back then. It didn't get a lot of pressure, and like get fishing away from pressure was a big deal back then.
Do you do you find yourself doing that right now in Vermilion, getting away from the pressure? Because I mean, everybody that goes up there will have a map card. Everybody at
Yeah,
minimum has side image, so they'll be able to fish basically every obvious rock bar in the middle of the lake
there's a
almost perfectly without knowing anything about it.
yeah, maybe a little bit in November. Like I've got some stuff that's a little bit off the beaten path. That's really good, but in the summertime, I mean, it's just like some of the best spots are the best spots. One really like kind of interesting thing. So they've been the DNR has all the fish that have been stocked since like 2018 or 17. They've all been pit tagged,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and it's amazing how and they've been given like they've like a lot of the us guides have pit tag readers, a lot of the resorts have pit tag readers, and then Glade has been getting all the like all the information and from the anglers on where these fish, and it's like on those tagged fish they have the size when it was the year it was stocked, the size when it was stocked, and then the location that it was stocked. And it's amazing how a lot of the fish have kind of stuck to the areas where they've been stocked, but there are some fish that have swam a long ways to go and be caught and like live in some of these like more currenty areas.
Hmm.
So there's definitely areas of the lake that the muskies really like to be because I believe because of current and food. And like those areas everybody knows about. They're very, I guess, I hate to say community spots because community spots are like some of the best spots, but best
Right.
spots that everybody knows about. But the fish still go there because they want to be there, and you just got to figure out how to catch them.
Yeah, that seemed to be at least from our short amount of time up on Vermilion, it was maybe not as hard to find the fish, but it was definitely, tricky to get them to actually eat, commit. And it I think all the fish that we boated on Vermilion have all been on kind of some weird baits. At least for our short stint up there. I mean, our tournament fish and the PMTT was on a, I don't know, Gus, you could say it if you want, but it was on a custom bucktail Gus tied up that was super wonky. Um, we had luck on the China double dogs that Brian randomly put up, took out of the box with the little T-Rex arms
Yeah.
up there. And
Oh, that's like
The
you got.
dipstick.
yeah, dipstick, like a weird, cool looking diving rise type bait and just random stuff, that I didn't anticipate catching fish on up there.
Yeah, you have to be really good at bending wire and getting creative making bucktails. And then I spend a lot of money on like whatever's new, cool, and different every year. And
Yeah.
constantly, you got to be a good tinkerer. Like, and just just a little tiny difference. I mean, I have tons, and I could tell you story upon story upon story of just like weird baits and weird scenarios, like just the difference between like not thinking there's a muskie in the lake and then having a really good day.
Did you have to do some of these tinkers on the fly? I mean, maybe
Oh
we can
yeah,
get in some. Yeah. I don't know
yeah.
if there's one that pops into your mind first. I'd love to hear it, tinkering's fun.
Probably like the one when I learned like how big of a deal color was even after dark was on Mille Lacs back in the day, and it was one where like Jason, like it was a like probably an August full moon. Everybody that owned a musky boat was out fishing on Mille Lacs, and it was super calm. And like we were fishing in Malmo. I think Jason was down in Vineland, and Greg was like in Wellfwood. And there had to been like 50 boats in the Malmo area that night. And I saw one muskie get caught, and it was like kind of calm and just like, God, this sucks. And then I talked to Jason, and I'm like, how are you doing? He's like, oh, we've caught two and lost one. I was like, really? Like I've seen one fish caught, and he's like, I think I talked to Greg, and Greg hadn't caught any. He goes, I don't know. I think I got a weird color. He's like, I think he goes, that's the only reason why I'm getting it. I'm like, well, what color is it? He goes, well, you don't have it. And I go, well, what color is it? I said, it's white with black blades, or no, white blades, black skirt. I was like, oh shit. I was like, I had a white cowgirl and a black cowgirl and an 051 wire in the boat. I freaking made one, put the damn thing in the water, and we ended up catching four that night.
That's insane.
Got four on that bait, and then I think we went and caught like maybe we caught five. I caught one more out of Garrison like real late in the morning.
White blades, blacks, that's like a total skunk pattern.
Oh yeah,
Pepe Le
That's
Pew.
but
gross.
but I mean I've like taking and reshafting like in 2000 like 8 and 9, those are like reshaft, like it all kind of started I would say like reshafting like junior cowgirls on really light wire, like reshafting shumway flashers on really light wire, and then adding blue fox bells
Sure.
uh, to different baits, and then obviously like the staggers, like what was it, was Sound Science, like was Pete Maynard the first one to like produce whatever, was that like 2015 when the like the weird blades thing kind of became a thing?
Are you talking about like the squeaking baitfish technology type
No,
stuff, or
Oh, just like staggered bucktails
PBS.
in
are you
general,
just
like
talking
not a
about
yeah, no, this was like, so there's in 2015. I want to say it was it was just a flash in the pan, but it's
Huh,
why we have like stagger, like the whole stagger blade phenomenon.
funny.
Would have been like 2000. It was called like Sound Science or something like that, and
Okay.
that was also like Pandora's box of baits
Yeah.
with buck.
2000, 2015, we were throwing Booker Tail 500s and 700s still. So we weren't quite there yet on the on that. I think I don't know if this is a whole wives' tale, but I think somebody I'm really mad I can't remember who told me this, but I'm pretty sure somebody told me that you had them throwing like double 20s up on Vermilion at one point in time.
Double
Austin,
Is that
20s.
true?
Yeah, no, that's totally. Um,
who made those?
That's absurd.
there's this guy.
Stupid.
His name was Kyle Free. I want to say was his last name, and he made some 20 blades, and they were just cut out of stainless steel, and I
How big are those?
Yeah, what is a dinner plate?
back in the Musky Buster days, like I painted them like really nice colors, and I threw them a little bit, but I didn't make the baits right. I had the hooks, like the front hook, like right under the blades. So when the fish hit the blades, they flattened the blades out. You couldn't hook them.
Oh,
I think I lost a couple fish on it and I just shelved it. And then, so that would have been like, it's probably 2010. And then I don't know, probably like 2017 or 18 or 19. I brought them back, remade them, like, and
Found the picture from Austin
yeah,
Wiggerman. Them.
yeah.
those are
How are
ridiculous.
those not blowing up a reel?
Oh, dude, it did. Like they were horrible. They were awful. But yeah, I think I had a black one that was pretty decent, and then it like I think I blew one of the blades off of it and just. But that we had a good supermodel bite going all through October this year. But like that really big blade bite for me was really good until probably I'm trying to think. Probably that kind of died for me. The big blade bite in the late fall kind of died for me a couple of years ago.
Interesting. Did you find when those really big ones came out, not the tens, but like a supermodel type of bait, um, would you throw those right off the rip, like on Vermilion right away in the season, or would you find the fish not exactly key in on
I,
that?
I never threw them early, um, just because like I've been doing it long enough. Like I do battle some like carpal tunnel and tendonitis issues. So like I definitely like I still throw a lot of big stuff and like throw a lot of I kind of work into it a little bit. One of my buddies got a 51 incher on a guided a 51 incher on a detonator on opening weekend last year up there. Still
Goodness gracious.
big stuff.
Right. That's sweet. I know we texted before this. I asked if you had some spring stuff to maybe show off if you still
Yeah.
have it around and
Yeah,
kind
we
of
got
thinking back
Minnesota
to that.
opener tomorrow. We haven't even talked about opening weekend
I
yet.
know, right? Yeah, that's like one.
Or not
Yeah,
tomorrow, but yeah, when this comes out, 2 days.
yeah, in a few days, yeah. So to get people maybe psyched and a couple different options if they're not going to be throwing, supermodels and
Yeah.
giant stuff right off the rip, what are some small baits that maybe you've enjoyed throwing in the spring, had some success, and then we can maybe go through the setups and kind of how to throw them because I think we've talked a few technical things this pod, but mostly stories, but we always love stories.
I do have a lot of stories. So I do like um I do like fishing the shallows on Vermilion, like opening week. It's mostly you're catching mostly males. But our males we do get really nice. Like I do believe I've caught some 50-inch males on Lake Vermilion. Um, but like mostly like we get some males that are like in that 47, 48-inch range. And they're pretty sporty. They like top They're super aggressive. And so I do like to target those. I've caught a few big ones fishing shallow. Um, but if we're gonna catch a 50 incher opening week, it most likely is going to be in the open water. So we'll,
Gotcha.
but I do absolutely love the shallow water fishing is what I look forward to the most. And basically, like if the fishing's really good, like we can get them on. They absolutely love topwaters. So like anything that's like this is a pacemaker. Anything that's kind of big and slow moving, you know, that you're going to get kind of a reaction type strike from. Like this is the smaller of the Rapska walk the dogs. Good old hog wobbler. Like you can catch them on a hog wobbler like right in the middle of the day. Um, the old
Sounds fun.
What? That does sound fun.
if you know where you have some patience. So a wick creeper like that'll catch them, and like the old worth flap tail. Um, those are all like really good when they're biting really well. The I throw like frenzy IC7s are really good, but probably the one that we catch the most fish on is just I remake these, but a number 5 Vibrex, and then just a white marabou tail with some feathers, some flashaboo, and a lighter weight. But for whatever reason, they just love to eat this. Um, White is definitely like a really like key color. Like sunny when it's sunny or cloudy. Um, little 5 inch, 6 inch white gliders. Sometimes when it's overcast, the overcast, I like the walleye stuff. Small swim baits work really well. This is a Zilla Tic Tac. That's a really cool one.
Sweet.
Do the regular swimming dog. I catch Tucker always makes fun of me, but these things catch nice fish for me early in Canada and Vermilion. This is the Evergreen SB150.
What is that?
Yeah, what is that?
It's a walking bait with a rattle, and it's got like a little popper front on it.
Is that
Huh.
subsurface?
Nope, this is topwater bait.
Top water bait?
Yeah, they really like to eat this one, and then also any of like the Japanese style like gliders, like the segmented gliders. Like this is the Galapagos Grace 240. Like this is an awesome bait. This is new for me this year, but I know this one's gonna catch them.
Is that one of those like $250 baits?
No, this one's not bad. This is I want to say this one's probably right 80-90 bucks.
Have you experimented with a lot of those? I know some of those Japanese gliders can get outrageously expensive.
Yeah, I honestly like I haven't thrown any of the crazy ones. I've had like luck with the Rashi, like the Storm Rashi glides. Like that's been a good one for me. This evergreen, like I said, this is a Japanese bait.
Hmm.
The other thing too is like all these baits have really like the hooks that come on them are really high quality. I did upsize the hooks on that Grace, but I bet I've caught 20 fish on these SBs early, and the only one that I've ever lost was that one filming with Tucker like 2 years ago. Like
Oh my
usually
God.
they come up and they eat it and you never lose them.
Sting them. How do you even stumble across a bait like that?
Just from Thorn Brothers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, just stared at all that different stuff. And then I had a client up probably this is probably 15 years ago that it was a musky guy, and then he brought his buddy, and I want to say is John. John was my client's name, and then he brought up his buddy Steve from California, and Steve was like a bass guy, and he brought like this weird segmented Japanese like swim bait. It's like a 4 segmented Japanese swim bait, and I bet you he had like 20 follows on that thing when fishing wasn't that good.
Hmm.
And I was like, all right, well, there's something to this. So that definitely was like kind of eye opening, and so I've been kind of paying attention to that stuff for a while now. And then as far as sales, definitely will be. This is our new bait from Thorn Brothers that we're going to do a release sometime in the near future. This is our small altar dog, and basically scaled down. We took basically our altar dog, which is the dimensions between like the old China 2-pounder and the old China pounder, and then we split all of the dimensions exactly in half, like every little possible measurable, to make that bait. And then we scaled that bait down 25% to make it just smaller than a pounder, but it's still really wide. And then what we've done with this bait is it's basically as is right now without a weight on it. This thing is about, we put as little weight as we could possibly get it to have it run. And the amount of like glide and hang time that this bait has is unreal. Last fall, we did really well with them.
What's the actual weight of the bait?
It's right now, God, I couldn't even tell you. It's lighter than a shallow pounder.
Hmm.
I should know.
Wow.
But then
Is the tail longer than the?
nope, it's a standard. Everything is scaled down, so it's all the scale.
Interesting.
But
Between a mag dog and a pounder,
yeah,
wider head.
yep, that wide head is the big thing. It just you get a lot of really big glides, and it's a really snappy bait. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna have a weight that's gonna have 2 slots, so it can slide forward or slide back. The weight's going to be roughly a half ounce, and then the bait's gonna fish a lot. Similar depth range to a pounder. But this thing's filthy. Like I'll definitely be throwing this just as is on some of our newly emerging weeds and our outside edges.
Was there any conversation on bringing back the twisty arms on each side?
No, that I can show you how to do that. Just
Brad would
Boil
love
them
that.
up.
just take a couple grubs and cut them off and get a little bottle and mend it, and you can do some twisty arms.
Does it work for you?
I made a 2-pound double dog like that back in the day.
That's hilarious.
The bait held up. I can't say that it works.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then the last thing would be, I guess, like some open water baits. I don't go to like, I would definitely throw the small altar dog in the open water. But yeah, I really like Cole's, like the Zilla, the hookers.
Mm-hmm.
Like these things are great. They just have a lot of top to belly body like roll, and then that big eyeball just flashes like crazy. Those are really good. And I don't know what it is about like this style bait, but this is his Gladiator. Again, they have like a nice little shimmy, and you can with those big eyes, you can really see it work. And this was probably I didn't do it a ton, but this was our best open water casting bait last year. That's just the small Gladiator, and then Trevor, who's running the big 3 now. This is his bait, the Trophy X. Like that thing with all the top. It's got a lot going on, but our muskies
Wild bait.
really liked this thing last year. Just
Did they? Oh, there's your arms, Brian. It's got a little squiggly arms.
It's got
three
too
of
many.
them.
3 of them.
Yeah.
they go absolutely crazy for this bait. Like it's pretty cool. And then your little homemade tinkering, little action plastics with some craft for jig head.
I was gonna ask you about the jig stuff. I did watch a Thorn Bros video of you catching some nice fish on a jig in the spring in those spawning bays. It's something I started getting into a little bit down in Iowa this year and had a blast doing it. So kind of two-part question. One, how much fun is it catching fish on a jig? Catching muskies on a jig, pretty sweet. And then two, what kind of setups do you like running? What kind of Thorn Bros, Jesus, rod setups do you like using for early season on some of those lighter baits?
So on the jigs like you're doing, those you do though. If you're the biggest thing that I found with having success on like a jig and lizard, like that lizard from the video on Thorns,
Yeah.
is you do have to fish that on like a lighter rod, just because even with like the quality of some of the, like, you don't want to use a big giant, like, to borrow Nellie's term, like a shark hook. You don't want a big giant hook on that because they'll actually like look at it for quite a while before they eat it. You do need like a really appropriately sized, like jig head and everything, and you pretty much got to make your own. And you got to fish that on a lighter setup. Like we up in Canada, we run a lot of spinning rods with those.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get like
Okay.
the fork and wind up on your hook set, and then it's hard. Like in clear water, it's really hard not to set the hook hard with those. Or I'll run a heavy bass setup with 25-pound fluorocarbon.
Okay.
And then I'll run like 100-pound leader. And like, even though you're using a lighter setup, the fight is still over in like less than a minute. Like it's still like a musky fight. Like it's done pretty fast. But light. Like you want to use lighter tackle. You want to use kind of a stealthy jig, and like a 4 to 9 inch lizard works really well. But yeah, I actually brought all of my setups up because with all these lures, you kind of do need, especially like some of the smaller Japanese stuff. You kind of need a little bit different setups. But real quick, this right here, hopefully they'll see it. I'm gonna knock all of them over. Right up for it. But what I run for the bucktails, those smaller bucktails, is just I don't know if you can. It's probably hard. Can you see it? The leader at all?
Yep.
Yeah.
That is just that stealth, or not stealth. The leaders and lures, just that short Doug Wegner bucktail leader. With bucktails, I like a single strand. The one thing that I will do is I will tie that. I don't even, I'd have to ask Captain Ben, but I always call it the Huff loop. It could be called the Huff Naggle, but like I'll tie that loop in the line, and then just run the leader through, like run the loop through, and then through the eye of the leader, and then back through to connect it. So that way I'll have that big knot, 8 inches above my leader. So that's kind of like acts as a bead. So at dark, when it's coming in. But that's the bucket up. And then I'll run I do run a ton of split rings on 90% of the lures. So then I'll just split right to the ball bearing. So that'll be the light bucktail setup. And then this is just a medium heavy predator with a 300. This is a Daiwa Tatula, so like a big bass reel. That's what I like to use for the smaller bucktails.
What length rod for the bucktails then?
That's a 9.3.
Okay. Nice.
I do run a lot of, with my regular bucktail rods, I run a lot of 10-foot and a lot of 9.5 and 10-foot stuff. But it's just that particular blank, just like 9.3, 9.6 is a really nice action for that. And then this setup right here, this is for this would be like my swim bait setup, like those small swim baits. This is the same rod, 9.3 medium heavy predator, and then this is just 100-pound fluorocarbon, just that Huff loop tied to a really strong small snap. Once I figure out like what swim bait I'm going to use, I'm just going to direct tie the swim bait, and then just about 15 inches, and then just a double uni right to that. And then that's just a really stealthy, really light leader. That's just going to let all those really swim baits have the most action. You're going to get the most belly roll and the most action out of them, the best tail thump. Then the next one is this is going to be like some of those little twitchy, like those little twitchy baits. Like I throw the SB. This is a 9-foot heavy, fast bass rod. So this is like a little bit faster rod than that predator. This little Daiwa 300 coastal or 200 coastal is really cool. 7-to-3 gear ratio. It's got a 100-millimeter handle. So it's nice. You don't feel like you're fishing with a really small reel. Pairs up really nice with that rod. And then the leader is just the same, just tied on a snap. This one might be 150-pound fluorocarbon, so it's a little bit stiffer and about 8 inches. And then that's just what I run with all those little twitch baits. And then the last one, then like no ball bearing on that one. And then for my little gliders, this is that same heavy, moderately fast bass rod. And then I just run a little 100-pound wire leader with a snap on that, like roughly 6 inches. And then that's really well with all those little gliders. But like all of those leaders are super strong. I've never had any issues with them, and they're all lightweight, and they don't affect the action of any of those lures. Like that's the biggest thing is if you run any of those baits on a heavy leader, like it just kills them.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that totally makes sense. And that was going to be a question. It's like, have you ever had a scare with those leaders and what makes you have to change it? Like
100.
every fish or
Yeah, if you
if
you get teeth on it, but I rarely ever get any nicks or anything in those leaders. That's Daiwa 100-pound fluorocarbon, and that seems to be a little bit thicker than like the Seagar. But that's
yeah.
bulletproof fluorocarbon. Like normally with I usually don't run anything but like 130 or 150, but that 100-pound is like really, really, really durable.
That's good to know for sure. Yeah, get the most action out of your baits. Is that going to be so I guess another technical question here. I don't know what the we've been seeing the weather here in northern Wisconsin's been hot and super sunny and mostly flat calm. Has that been the case up in Vermilion if you've been watching? And if that is, or whatever the weather's been, what do you think the bite's going to be like? I haven't even looked at the weather in the forecast. I just know we're finally getting some rain here. How do you think it's going to be?
I was up there guiding bass all last week, and like we definitely saw like we did not see a lot of muskies in the shallows compared to the year before. And the ones that we did see, I would say were like they're pre-spawn females. I don't think I really saw any males. Like there weren't any. A lot of times you'll get like some of the males will kind of be sitting on like a point in front of a bay or like in a saddle, like they kind of stake out like a little area, where they can intercept females as they swim into the spawning areas, and they really hadn't set up, like even at that point last week. So I don't know. I anticipate like I'll give the shallows will get like it'll get like a good solid day and a half, going and fishing a lot of my favorite shallow spots and kind of my milk runs on that before I'll deviate too much and go to the deep water. But I will say Vermilion, the fish transition really fast there, like from shallow to deep, or like from shallow to the open water. And then they may go out, they may be in the shallows during the day and then go out at night too. Like this Vermilion fish move a lot. Where it seems like early on, I do have some experience early on Mille Lacs, where it seems like those fish really like to hang out in those bays, those big bays. In Vermilion, they don't when they hit, like they'll hit the outside weed edges for, and like near the spawning areas and the shallow areas, they'll just be there for a very brief period of time before they go to the open water. It might only be a couple hours even. And then it's like they'll go out to the open water and then they'll almost come back in like when it's nice and sunny and they're craving some warm water.
Interesting.
Or craving putting their nose into some current.
Yeah.
Or wanting to eat a salamander off the bottom.
Yeah. No, so that's salamander. That's one of I still have a jig rod in the boat, but I've only caught just a few fish in Minnesota doing that.
Yeah.
It's always a good option to have.
Yeah, no, and it's just kind of a fun deal,
Great, like we catch them in Canada pretty well that way. Like that is a staple, like for Canadian opener.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
So a lot of people that are listening to this are probably fishing in the metro this weekend or maybe heading up to Mille Lacs. We won't hold you to it, but given the kind of the recent couple weeks of weather, how do you think the bite's going to be here in the metro? And do you think there's still going to be some fish to be had in the bays up on Mille Lacs?
Yeah, I think it's going to be. I think there'll be some. I think there's going to be really good fishing for opening weekend. I think you'll see a lot of happy faces on the socials.
That's good.
I think people are going to catch them everywhere. Up by us, there's going to be fish in the open water caught. There's going to be fish in the shallows caught. I'm sure Mille Lacs will be good. Probably the whole following week. I'm planning on fishing Mille Lacs the second Saturday of the season with my kids for muskies. So when I was out bass fishing out there, I definitely saw enough muskies around that there'll hopefully be at least some males hanging around.
I think there's a lot of happy people listening to you say that right now.
Yeah. But the thing I love about the springtime fishing is like it can be like I'm a topwater junkie.
Mm-hmm.
And like this just seems like those male, like when you get those males in those bays, like they love topwaters. Like I don't care if I'm not fishing for the biggest fish in the lake. Like I love watching muskies smash topwaters.
Should
I don't know if
I
it's
be
something
afraid
that
to?
we. Oh, sorry, Max. I was just gonna say I don't know if it's something that we just don't do, or I know our fellow man Brian here is throwing a top water a time or two on opening weekend up here in Wisconsin, but not a thing that I've personally ever witnessed. I don't know if you from a long time ago, you said I think Holcomb or whatever, I believe. Fishing opener or fishing in Wisconsin fish. Did you ever see that or that difference?
Mostly walk the dog topwaters.
Gotcha.
But yeah,
Tried.
they like those. So walk the dog topwaters seem to work. Like that's the best cold water topwater, I believe. Like
Gotcha.
that'll be the first one to work really well, and then that'll be one of the last to work really well. And I
Mhm.
really honestly like for me, top waters is not necessarily like about like a warm water, cold water. Obviously, fishing's got to be good, but it's way more about like a strike zone kind of thing. Um, like I've caught quite a few nice fish in top waters and really cold water, but like those fish were also in like they were in shallow water, like less than 4 feet of water. So like you got to have
Sure.
where like a top water is not going to be effective in cold water if the muskie's on the bottom in 15 feet of water. But if the muskie's shallow, if the muskie's in 4 feet of water, like they can be effective.
That makes
Gotcha.
sense. Man, well, this has been freaking awesome. I fear that the rest of my questions about Minnesota opener will probably just be too self-serving at this point. So I'm I'm
Yeah.
gonna I'm gonna
Go
shut up
for it.
and just be excited to get out there and fish again this weekend. But yeah, I think we could probably sit here all night and keep asking you about tactics, stories, everything. But we'll leave enough meat on the bone for next time. Hopefully, we'll have you back on and we can chat more about all that good stuff. So
Yeah, right on. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to touch on because definitely got some new cool stuff at the shop. We got the altar dogs coming. I did grab, I was pretty stoked about these. I'm definitely, so I'm going to be guiding up on obviously Vermilion this next week, but then the latter part of the week, I'm coming back and Tucker and Ben and I think Michael from the shop are going to be fishing Tonka. But we did get some cool stuff in at the shop. We just got like an absolutely killer shipment of the new Panda.
I saw those, yeah.
yeah, those look good.
This is
Holy crap.
their Pro Series with the blade on the back. Like that is going to be really good up by us. And then we also got a whole big selection of our custom colors in the Frenzy ringers.
Nice.
Oh,
So
sweet.
those will be some of the bucktails I plan on throwing.
I liked your bait haul tonight that you shared for early season. Got me thinking. So maybe we'll have you back on, kind of like a self-serving pod in the fall if we make our way back up to Vermilion.
Oh, we will be making our way back up to Vermilion.
So
We will
yeah,
be.
we need some
Yes.
fall baits then.
Oh, for you. I grabbed one fall because we talked about maybe Potentially, I haven't talked about this. I gotta get the damn hook out of there. At least this is the one that I like to use. This is what's going to be welded. These are welded on my rod. I literally have a Cisco colored one and a white one, but our altered off. Like that is like been for 3 years now. That's been by far my best bait. So
I like that color.
Yeah.
that's the silver Twinkie.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll be more well equipped this year when we go up to Vermilion in November. So
So nice. I don't mean to be like beating on, like, I don't want to make it sound too great because it is, but like that Vermilion late fall bite is the one bite that I've seen that just, it really hasn't changed a whole lot in 20 years.
It's good to hear.
So that's it's rather, I don't know, it's kind of, I guess, refreshing because everything has changed so much.
Right.
yeah. Yeah, well, we can't thank you enough for coming on. This has been so much fun. You've been so generous with your time. I mean, I don't know how long we're going, probably over an hour and a half at this point. Well over an hour and a half, so it's been awesome.
Right on. Well, yeah, maybe you can, next time we do this, we can hit up some more Greg stories, some more Ty stories.
Oh,
We'd
absolutely.
love that.
That would be awesome.
After the summer of Tucker, we can probably have some Tucker stories.
Good. Yeah.
Absolutely. Maybe even get you and Greg on at the same time.
Oh, that would be amazing.
Just let you guys host the show. We'll just sit back and drink beer.
On some cold winter night.
Yeah, that would be a great winter pod. Oh man. That would help pass the time.
That one.
Yeah. That's too good. Yeah. Thank you so much, Luke, for hopping on. I don't know if you do have availability or whatnot, but if you want to throw some plugs to how people can get in touch with you for booking a trip with you up in Vermilion.
Yeah, just you can just reach out. My cell number is pretty available out there. Otherwise, just reach out to Vermilion Dam. Unfortunately, this year I'm booked for the year, but like the best time to get a hold of me for a guide trip is like usually in December or January. Usually by the time the Milwaukee Musky Expo rolls around, I'm pretty much full for the year.
Gotcha. Nice. It's awesome.
Yeah,
Well,
that's quick. It's a good thing.
It's a very good thing.
Get in while you can.
Short window.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. You guys have a great night.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you very much.
Good luck on
Take
opener.
care.
Yeah, thanks. Same to you guys.